your eyes open.
Wall was all windows, and John Holmes was standing there staring out the window with his hands behind his back like a Marvel supervillain. They ended up talking about Cuddy's relationship with Cassie, and how neither of them seemed to know that the other was actually dating her at the same time. Diddy denied any involvement in blowing up his car or setting it on flame. Now, the witness called after Kid Cudi is someone I've actually spoken with on this very show. Makeup artist Myla Morales, who worked for Diddy and Cassie. Now, she testified about an incident at a hotel in 2010 where she saw Cassie right after Diddy had beaten her up. But what she told the jury matches what she told me last year during her first interview. Once she came out of the room, she was badly, beaten. Oh my God! What did her physical appearance look like? I mean, it was knots on her head, black eye, busted lip, but a lot of knots all over her head. Morales said that she let Cassie stay at her home for a few days after that. Then came a hotel manager in Beverly Hills. So it was a packed day in the courtroom. The jury saw notes from Diddy's record at the hotel, and one said this: always spilled candle wax on everything and used excessive amounts of oil. Placed the room out of order upon departure for deep cleaning. Leading us off tonight is CNN's Kara Scannell, who has been in court every day of this trial. Kara, it's right, Kid Cudi, indicating that Diddy was behind the Molotov cocktail that he says set fire to his Porsche. He also noted he had found peace with an apology that he received from Diddy a few years later. What happened?
Yeah, so after the Molotov cocktail incident, Kid Cudi said that he reached out to Combs, and because Combs had been trying to get in contact with him, and he wanted to settle things. So he said that they agreed to meet at the Soho House. This was in January of 2012. And he said he walked into the room, and Combs was standing in front of glass windows with his hands behind his back, which Kid Cudi said made him look like a Marvel superhero villain. And he said that he then had this meeting with him where they discussed Ventura, the dating, and he said that they shook hands at the end, and he said to Combs in that moment, "What about my car?" And Combs said, "I don't know what you're talking about." And so Kid Cudi testified that he thought Combs was lying. Then it was 3 years later, in 2015, he runs into Combs at the Soho House. He said Combs is there with his daughter. He pulls him aside and he says, "I apologize for everything that went on." And so Kid Cudi said that he made peace with that because he didn't think he would even get any kind of apology, and he just moved on. So after his testimony today, he went to Instagram and he posted a story thanking people for supporting.
I just want to say thank you so much, man. People been hitting me up the past week, just checking in, and even today, and it really means a lot to me, man. It's a stressful situation. I'm glad it's behind me.
So that's what his last message was to his fans. He wasn't on the stand that long, but certainly something that the prosecution thought would be important for their racketeering conspiracy part of this case. Laura?
Hearing him testify in person was really something. I think everyone was waiting to figure out what he would contribute to the overall prosecution's case. He is a prosecution witness. He was crossed by the defense. But one of the things that they were able to get during that cross-examination from Diddy's defense counsel, he described in court feeling played by Cassie, that she, one, was actually dating him while dating Teddy. Also, that she returned to him during that Soho meeting, and that he had also played Diddy. Tell me about that.
Yeah, so this was during cross-examination. The lawyer for Combs, Brian Steele, is asking Kid Cudi about his relationship with Ventura and saying, you were in communication with her basically every day, in some form or another, for most of 2011. And Kid Cudi says, yes, they were. They only started kind of getting romantically dating later, but they had this relationship. And his understanding from Ventura was that she was no longer involved with Combs. So then Brian Steele says to him, the person who played you is the same person who played Sean. It's Miss Ventura, true? And Kate Cudi says, true. And, this all goes to part of Combs' defense, which is that Kathy Ventura was not coerced or controlled by Combs, that she was making her own decisions. And so this is something that his team is going to seize on to show that she was involved with someone else. She could have left this relationship, but she went back to Combs. Of course, the prosecution has a different theory, but this testimony was something that they did try to jump on today.
Did Kid Cudi and Diddy interact at all?
It was interesting. Kid Cudi walked into the courtroom. It was kind of a moment because everyone was waiting for him. His name has been discussed for days. He's wearing a leather jacket. He's got a different hearing. He walks down the center aisle. There's rows on both sides. And Holmes is facing forward. He doesn't see him. And then when Cudi crosses kind of this threshold, you see Combs look over to him, but at that point there was no eye contact because Kid Cudi had already passed. When Kid Cudi was on the witness stand, most of his attention was really focused on the lawyers asking him the questions. I didn't see him really make any effort to make eye contact with Combs. And then when he was leaving the witness stand, Combs seemed involved in talking to his attorneys, so it didn't seem like there was any interaction between these two former boyfriends of Ventura.
Kara Scannell, thank you so much. With me now, my all-star legal panel, former AUSA Jim Rossi, trial attorney and legal analyst Monique Presley, represented Bill Cosby in the past, and former federal prosecutor Elise Adamson, also here. Let's unpack this all. Let me begin with you. Listen, having Kid Cudi testify, everyone was leaning in. They were very much engaged. Talked about this horse being set on fire, this love triangle that Diddy and Cudi were unaware of, apparently. But does it move people on the RICO racketeering?
Or I think it absolutely does, because if you read in the indictment, the arson is one of the predicate offenses for the racketeering activities that the government must prove, and that's a crime that has to have been committed at the direction of this corrupt enterprise, and that's what they were getting at this arson. And so they were laying a very strong foundation. The defense on cross, well, they tried to make it seem like Kid Cudi had no idea who had blown up his car, and that's true. He wasn't there. But they completely ignored the fact that Kathy had just testified that Sean Combs has in fact threatened to blow up Kid Cudi's car. And so there is that link there that prosecutors threw out very early, and I think that was a huge score for the prosecution. Do you agree?
Absolutely. Of course, Lee said it, so.
Yeah.
You said,
I love a prosecutor, defense attorney having good.
you said in conversation. The reason I like this witness, and it follows up with Alicia just said, I look at an indictment, and when I'm a prosecutor, I'm always thinking about what are the elements of this charging document. For RICO, you need the enterprise, and it's easy to prove an enterprise. It's his business, his empire. You need to connect this arson to the enterprise because he's using at least one or two associates to help him break into Cudi's home, and inferentially, by circumstantial evidence, he torched the Porsche with the Molotov cocktail. So you're connecting the arson to his use of the enterprise. It's sort of like The Sopranos. You can't just separate them. And I think they connected one key guy by the arson, by connecting it to the enterprise because he's using employees to help him out. And he has the motive to do it.
Well, Monique, do you see it the same way? Because on the one hand, I think you think about the enterprise. I mean, it's called Bad Boy Enterprises, right? And of course, his whole umbrella of entities are included, whether it's liquor or clothing or lifestyle, et cetera. It sounds like he's suggesting that because that enterprise exists and then an arson occurred, the enterprise works to actually commit just those crimes.
I mean, and it's very much like The Sopranos right now because it's fiction. Like, there's no actual evidence of it that's been entered in at trial. I was wondering as I was reading it, where what's the other crimes exception? Like, how is it working in here when you've got a witness on the stand who says that some other witness said that their car is going to get blown up? Do I know who blew up my car? No. Was it there when my car was blown up? No. Was I aware that the DNA for the person that was found in the car was a female, not a male? No. I mean, maybe it's the defense attorney in me, but I do believe that if you're charged with crimes, then the high standard for a criminal trial is beyond a reasonable doubt. And in the land of, wishes, hopes, and dreams, we could say he's using his enterprise like having a business, which isn't against the law. And we've got these employees, who are they, by the way, who are helping him to do what exactly? None of that is in evidence at this point.
There was a moment, too, when they did suggest, and there's objections. No one's actually been charged for the crime of the car. And I wondered how that was going to hit with the jury because, again, they're trying to connect dots of what ultimately they're going to be asked to do. RICO, sex trafficking, and, of course, prostitution. Do you think that there is a risk that the prosecution has not connected the dots at this stage yet?
I think they're connecting them. As my teenage daughter might say, we got to let them cook, right? This is the Southern District of New York. They have a very high conviction rate. I do agree with you, Monique, that they haven't completely connected them all, but I think they're laying that foundation. And remember, this is racketeering conspiracy. All they need to prove is that Holmes entered into an agreement for this predicate act or this arson to have been committed. And they haven't been, this is like week 2. They have 6 more weeks. They're probably going to call more employees to finish connecting those up. Because I agree with you, if they don't, they're not going to get it. But
I find 6 more weeks of thinking. I mean, I had spent 6 more weeks of trying to do what they're doing would be surprising. I mean, they might include obviously the defense case as well. But then you have what the prosecution is at the 30th day. They're ordering witnesses of who they're calling. They've called a LA hotel manager to talk about the routine crash. Obviously, 3 dogs after that. They've got the makeup artist who is talking about this violence. There's a number of people talking about domestic violence. The defense, day 1, opening statement. He's a domestic abuser. We own that. He's not the other things. What does the makeup artist or the LA hotel employee, what does that move the needle, you think?
Well, can I just add a rebuttal to the great
No.
said? No.
Yes.
You just brought up a point that Cassie Ventura mentioned that Holmes had threatened to commit arson on her car. Okay, so somebody may not have directly seen Holmes do the dirty deed, but it corroborates what Cassie said. Point number 1. Now let's go to what you asked.
But wait, before you now we're taking a little detour for a second. Let's say that Holmes in fact did commit the arson and he had denied that he's done so. Let's say he did so.
Yep.
Does it help the prosecution that now it looks as though there is a tangible result of his insane jealousy? But is it enough to show that a criminal enterprise has helped to facilitate sex trafficking?
Yes, if you have a business, it could be a legitimate business, this was for most purposes. If you are using that business, employees, independent contractors, friends, associates, to do a pattern of criminal acts to threaten people so they can engage in sex trafficking, or just the man act, if you're using those...
The man act is traveling prostitution.
Yeah, and you don't need force, fraud, or coercion. If you're using your business, whether it's a lumber business, a farm, or Holmes' enterprise, and you're using it to commit a pattern of related acts to commit sex trafficking man act, then that's RICO. You have satisfied RICO. I wanted to say this. I've done a fair number of trials, and too many. But the first day, the first week, the second week of a trial, it's going to go 8 to 12 weeks. It's the slow cooker thing, the crock pot. You have to have a series of witnesses that connect the dots, and I think they're doing it.
Well, the only way to have a good crock pot meal is to season it well. And I'm not sure the salt and pepper is there right now.
I like salt and pepper.
They got to have a lot more on there. But real quick, Monique, one of the things that they were trying to suggest was that both men were salty. Both were salty about the fact that they were being played by Cassie Ventura. That runs directly counter to the image the prosecution wants the jury to have of somebody who is helpless, who feels trapped, and could not possibly have ever been able to leave city homes without severe violence or revenge porn. He describes that she played them, that for a year they were uninterrupted in their ability to communicate and be together. What might that do to a jury who is trying to balance who they've heard from the stand and who was described by Kid Cudi?
They're going to be looking at it and trying to figure out whether the person who they were looking at that day is the same as the person who's being described a decade earlier going to what it means.
What's off the table is whether she was abused or not. As we talked about earlier this week, to me, the domestic violence has been proven, and they've seen it with their own eyes. Now, what they're going to assume about that, whether they accept this Hughes testimony or not, which to me is like appealable issue number one, because that's the psychologist who talks about the general patterns of what women might do if they are utterly, completely useless. She's never met with and assessed and evaluated Ms. Ventura, so why is she even on the stand? But that's just me. So we can't use her, but what they're going to look at and say is, okay, well, at some point she had some agency, and at some point she was making some decisions. What decisions was she making, and was this really a horrible love story, a horrible violent relationship, as opposed to a criminal enterprise? And that's why I said, these are two good prosecutors. I'm not prepared to say that that's what I'm seeing. You know what? Later in the show, we're going to be talking to Johnny Depp's attorney, Ben Chu, who actually also has a little familiarity with the person you say may have had a useless testimony. I'm talking about that psychologist. I'll be curious to pick his brain. Everyone, thank you so much.
Thank you.
We'll have much more on the trial later this hour, but first, the very latest on that shocking shooting in Washington, D.C. that broke on air last night. 2 Israeli embassy staffers gunned down by a man who then shouted, "Free Palestine." That man is now charged with murder. And police said that he's confessing to a call. What the investigation is revealing next.
A CNN special event on June 7th, a landmark television event. For the first time ever, Broadway goes live on television. George Clooney and the 5-time Tony-nominated Good Night and Good Luck. One night only, live on CNN and streaming live on Max.
The recipe for a long, healthy life? It starts with gently cooking our food to give your dog the nutrients they need without the ultra-processing. Get 50% off your first box, only at thefarmersdog.com.
I didn't think someone like
And it wouldn't disrupt my life in weeks.
I was wrong. I didn't know that 99% of people they have the virus that causes shingles, and it can reactivate at any time.
I learned that the hard way.
But you don't have to talk to your healthcare provider today.
Take direct communicated and your open-price satellite TV.
You take that.
You can't use this. Upgrade and save $30 a month and get 3 months free.
Upgrade to Dish. Save up to $50 a month and get 3 months free. Unplug and unlock. Road trips, uneasy. And big touchscreen for the biggest gym. And qualify for up to $7,500 in tax credit with Equinox TV. Unlock the tech and the value. With the 2025 Equinox TV, America's most affordable but $350 TV. Chevrolet, jet lights drive.
For normal, clinical normal strain can help us to keep our normal for a lifetime. It's backed by science. It is clinically proven to strengthen our teeth. I would recommend this toothpaste to everybody. It's really a great product.
It's officially summer season. Orange Chocolate has the perfect glasses and sunglasses for all of your pursuits. Find the frames of your summer, starting at $95 with prescription lenses, in stores and at warbyparker.com. If you're flattered, you got it, Mark? Good. Nothing makes you get better. Good thing is your Our patents are filter technology keeps leaves and debris out of your gutters forever. Guaranteed. Call 833-FILTER to get started. It's a permanent gutter solution that ends clogs for good.
They took the time to answer all of our questions. They really put us at ease.
And clog gutters for good. So refilter. Visit refilter.com today.
Oh, Dawson says, just feel the and you did your thing. You answered it. You fixed it. You nailed it. You did it. Over. Clinically proven to support memory in older adults. If you know that you can the mattresses depend on the types of luxury is assembled in American factories directly to you. In-home delivery and setup center, which is why over 90% of consumers would recommend Safa to friends and family. Safa, luxury mattresses made.
University of Maryland.
Yes, my bitch said move.
Get credit for life and
She said move, chair. I gotta go.
and helps cut down the cost of school. UVC helped me become a highly attractive candidate in the job market.
Know what's even more genius than literature? Having NerdWallet find a personal loan with the lowest rate for you. Just answer a few simple questions and bam!
Wow, you are smart.
Yeah, of course, Richard. I mastered the English language.
Evil Outdoors, searching for snakes, returns to first parts.
Breaking last night during our show, in fact, an unconscionable tragedy outside an event at the Capitol Jewish Museum right here in Washington, D.C., really a few blocks away. Two young Israeli embassy staffers who were about to get engaged were gunned down by Elias Rodriguez from Chicago, leaving friends, leaving co-workers, leaving families, really.
Yellow office was just a few doors down from mine. Sarah came in every morning with a smile, with the red hair blazing and the sun rising. So we miss them very much, and it's real trauma over it.
And they had the same positive energy, the same calm and quiet, but desire to do good things and to do important things and to live a life of purpose.
A few hours ago, the Justice Department charged the shooter with federal murder charges for cutting short the lives of Yaron Lashinsky and Sarah Milgram. The DOJ says it is investigating this murder as both an act of terrorism and a hate crime. Police say the suspect told them he committed the heinous act for Gaza. Now, as we've learned today, the event the couple was attending was focused on humanitarian aid efforts to Gaza. With me now, going to the Homeland Security and Intelligence of the Government in Washington, D.C., Janelle Harbin, and Rabbi Hiram Shafia, chaplain, of Pesher, Israel, the Georgetown Synagogue. Gentlemen, thank you both for being here. Rabbi, let me begin with you, because you live in this area, and it's a hop, skip, and a jump from where we are right now, which means it's close to all these major agencies and entities. What have you heard from the community and people around?
Yeah, I was at a vigil tonight at the White House in front of it at 8 p.m. And I said to people, I talked to my congregants, people are worried, people are afraid. Somebody from our congregation called my wife this morning and said, should I send my child to preschool today or not? It's at the JCC and I'm worried. So, what does it mean to be in a country built on religious freedom and be afraid?
That fear is so impactful all across the nation, not just when it happens in some place like Washington, D.C., but it has a ripple effect. And I know the investigators are looking, Donnell, at the suspect's digital footprint as well, a possible manifesto that has been circulating on the web. Could you just describe a little bit about how his internet activity and digital footprint might aid the government's understanding of what he is alleged to have done?
Well, the first thing I'll say is that lone actors are always the most difficult to detect and investigate.
That said,
Why is that?
that's because there's no network to interrupt. There's no communications between other individuals. Often these lone actors will reach out to somebody for weapons or some type of tactics to assist them. When they're operating by themselves, they're really operating under the radar unless they have what we call, which is where they may be online and they'll post something against the community, or they'll say they want to do something, which apparently this individual did. If that's done enough time and people have the wherewithal online to report that to law enforcement, then that's an opportunity to get them. But often we see these individuals post these things and then go on immediately out and mobilize violence.
He traveled here for a work conference. He had a legally purchased firearm that he actually declared in his check bag, no criminal records. Does that worry you about whether copycats, or worry you about the ability to prevent something like this?
Unfortunately, we've known this for the last few years. The last two DHS Homeland Threat Assessments that have been issued by Homeland Security have stated that crimes against the Jewish community are on the rise, and so long as the conflicts in United continues, the Jewish community needs to protect themselves against those crimes.
Rabbi, anti-Semitism is increasingly material as old as time, but the numbers have escalated certainly since the Cornell is described. But how has the rise of anti-Semitism, particularly in the last several years, contributed to the feeling of not feeling safe and being able to be among the world?
Yeah. You know, if you had told me 20 years ago that you wouldn't walk into a house of worship, a synagogue, without police, I wouldn't have believed it. But today it's true. You know, I have congregants who walk around the city and worry, you know, should I wear my kippah? Should I wear my Jewish star? Am I feel that way sometimes. You know,
what do you tell them?
It feels dangerous. You know, on the one hand, you want to be proud. You want to be able to be an American who's proud of your individual religious life. On the other hand, I understand it. I understand the fear. It's real.
Do you have a sense that there's anything that can be done through legal action, hate crime prosecution, investigations that would make people feel safer? I see from your facial expression it doesn't seem to be.
Well, as you pointed out, it rises and it falls. If it's rising, we have to ask ourselves why. You know, it's a bit of a trope to say Jews versus Mary and culture, but if this is happening, we have to ask ourselves, where's it coming from? What does it mean to live in a culture where people are behind, where people are behind? It's part of the matrix here. And so alone after, they might just tune into that. And we have to somehow create, you know, a different kind of culture. Well, it starts small, you know, it starts small. Let's understand people who are different. We all know that people with different politics than our own, right? We, instead of thinking, oh, they have a different way of seeing the world, we think, oh, I hate them. I got to get rid of them. We talk about this all the time, but it enters the hearts of human beings. We have to be responsible for American culture. Jews are just a tiny percentage of the world in America, and we all have to come together to realize that hatred. It's not just, we can't just, you know, blame what's happening in Israel today or this or that. We have to realize that this is this is a sensitive moment. We have to take this as a discussion. I just want to buttress what the rabbi said. Jews make up about 2% of the U.S. population, but last year they were targeting almost 70% of hate crimes related to the FBI standards. Jewish and anti-Semitism hate-related crimes have risen almost 1,000% in the last 10 years. So really, let's call more action to happen to protect these people.
When will it end? The no Harvard Rabbi Shotgun Play. Still ahead tonight, it's one of the big questions that is looming over the criminal trial against Sean Diddy Combs. Will he take the stand? My next guest successfully represented Johnny Depp in that blockbuster defamation trial where we saw many similar themes of alleged domestic abuse emerge. So what does he think Diddy and his legal team should do? He's here in studio to share with us next.
My happy place. One place I could truly be myself.
I want people to experience this beautifully diverse city. There's no other place like it. My Happy Place returns Sunday, June 1st on CNN. About 1 in 5 people with fatty liver disease have NASH, which can lead to cirrhosis.
I thought I had fatty liver disease, but it's actually NASH, and it's scarring my liver.
Rest Different is the first and only treatment for proteins for the stomach which works directly in the liver to help reduce stomach and reduce nutrition.
Storms, gallbladder, pancreas inflammation. Stop taking and call your doctor about tiredness, vomiting, fever, rash, jaundice, stomach pain. Tell your doctor if taking gemfibrozil, cyclosporin, clopidogrel, or statins. Side effects include diarrhea, itching, dizziness, constipation. I have a way forward.
Ask your liver specialist to test the stomach and ask about Rest Different.
It's a comedy. I'm also into flambéing. What I'm not into is heartburn. That's why I take Voquezna. Here in Keenan's stomach, Voquezna can kick some acid and relieve heartburn related to non-erosive GERD. Voquezna is the first and only FDA-approved treatment of the kind. And it heals erosive esophagitis, known as erosive GERD. Ooh la la. 93% of adults with erosive GERD were healed by 2 months. Of those healed, 79% stayed healed. Plus, Voquezna can provide heartburn-free days and nights. Other serious stomach conditions may exist. Don't take an allergic to Voquezna or while on delivery. Serious allergic reactions include trouble breathing, rash, itching, swelling of face, lips, tongue, or throat. Serious side effects may include kidney trouble, intestinal infection, fracture, life-threatening skin reactions, low B12 or magnesium levels, and stomach. Tell your doctor about your medications, and if you have diarrhea, persistent stomach pain, increased blood urine, seizures, dizziness, irregular heartbeat, giddiness, chills, weakness of breath, muscle aches and weakness, spasms, and hands, feet, and voice. But Voquezna can help kick some acid. Certainly, transform under about Voquezna.
Biggest sale in history has been extended. Save up to 30% until June 9th. And CY Pods is America's #1 container moving company. Whether you're relocating or renovating, save up to 30% at pods.com today. Oh, don't forget, one of my box.
Frank. If they say today, ultimate all in the wall. It's
If you're not such a hidden ass for Sarah Benz, no. Yo, she said the twins name.
You know, that's maybe Austin. It's a strange disease. What's correct? The right money moves aren't as absurd as you think.
Should be coming up at the research station. The network infrastructure at that place is state of the art. It won't take you long to pull the data.
Ask your doctor about varsity today.
From Rose Bowl festivities to Major League ballparks, ESPN Experiences takes you behind the scenes and inside the action. Next up, the Travelers Championship. Your all-access pass starts here.
George Clooney in Broadway's Good Night and Good Luck, live June 7th on CNN.
Transfer's complete. Go down the corridor and get in the elevator.
Well, let's get some perspective now what it was actually like inside that courtroom as rapper Kid Cudi took the stand today. Christine Cornell, who's been our eyes and our ears inside the courtroom, keeping a very close eye on all the testimony to bring you these sketches you've been seeing all night and throughout the trial. Christine, how many
Diddy behaving during Kid Cudi's testimony?
You know, I was just watching and listening. I actually did see Kid Cudi going for some minutes. Now, I can tell you that, you know, it's the luck of the draw whether or not you catch such a thing. But I do notice that a lot of witnesses don't engage with Huff, and she looked at him once.
Describe that glance. What kind of glance was it?
It was a connecting glance. You know, I mean, these two, what did he refer to Combs as his homie? That's why they had to get together and straighten this out, you know? I love it that he said he was going to go fight it. I'm going, oh yeah.
That was the moment he was describing, just so I understand, that was the moment he was describing, realizing that Diddy was at his home once he had discovered that he and Patrick Crowe were dating, and he was waiting for him. And then while going back to his home, Patty said he was going to try to confront him. He was not there and get calling the police instead. But you know, I want to know about George Kaplan. That was the former assistant that testified today. And he seemed to be really professionally in awe of Diddy and his experience in spite of his decision to leave because he says he witnessed violence against women. At one point, he called an icon. He called him a god among men, that he still wishes Diddy a happy birthday every year. What was Diddy's reaction to this kind of testimony that was really, really abusive towards him?
He was soaking it up. He was smiling. He was nodding vigorously. He was really being the flatterer. It was quite impressive and over the top. The flattery was breathtaking, you know. But the one little funny little twist was that I didn't see Diddy react to was when Catherine said, I invited him to my wedding, but I never heard something. He reacted to that, you know. He didn't react to that, but he reacted to, oh yes, you should react to her.
Christine Cornell, thank you so much.
Okay, ma'am.
So what's the key to defending a celebrity client in a high-profile case like this one? Let's ask my next guest who successfully represented Johnny Depp in his defamation suit against his former wife, Amber Heard. Benjamin Chu joins me now. So many questions about this whole trial and what people are thinking, but I don't know what your assessment is. Which side do you think has yet to win right now?
I think the prosecution is doing well. I think they were wise to start out with the tape that the rest of us have all seen, because I think that gets the jury less thinking about Diddy for all of its success and its celebrity, and start seeing him in an unfavorable light. So they're prepared for what the prosecution is going to do next, which is to build the building, the edifice of their case, which I think they're doing well.
The racketeering RICO charge, having to define that enterprise and connect it to crimes, is often a challenge for any prosecution team. Will it be more so here with such an expansive scope of businesses?
I think they're building the case very carefully, and I think they're establishing the elements. As you pointed out, this is a very long trial, so a lot of us are eager to kind of get to the end, but I think they're methodically going through establishing the elements. For example, I think they've already established all the requisite elements for transportation for purposes of prosecution. I think we've seen that with the male sex workers who've already testified. So that part of the case is almost done.
We'll see about Diddy, obviously, corroborating documents for the treatment structure, a lot of this past as well. We also heard yesterday from forensic psychologist and clinical psychologist Dr. John Hughes, who also testified in the Amber Heard trial. What was your assessment of the testimony?
I did not think her testimony was very persuasive. That's my personal opinion. For the same reason, I don't think it was persuasive enough in the trial, the first year in the death trial, because she had no direct experience, she did not examine Patsy Ventura. And I think that's a real weakness in the case, because she's opining about someone she's never met and she's never examined. So I think that hurts her. I think the cross-examination of her was effective, establishing that she had only represented alleged victims, never taken the other side. I think that also shows that she was biased and had the appearance biased, but whether that was true or not.
It's important to think about how they would assess it. Early on, you suggested that Daisy should
Well, the common wisdom, the standard wisdom is, not testify, particularly where here he has 80 civil suits against him, all of that cross-examination. However, I will be in the minority and say he may testify because I think just someone with testimony to come in, I think the video that we've all seen is so damaging. I think you may want to take a chance and explain how sorry he is, how he's trying how he's a different person than this many years ago. So I think that could help, but that's going to be an ultimate decision how each side comes to defense frames and issues.
I do have a little preview of what potential testimony from Diddy Michael Falcon issued an apology for following the disclosure of that hotel video. This really has
Looks like some systems are running on an
I take full responsibility for my action in that video. It was disgusting. I was disgusted then when I did it, I'm disgusted now. I'm committed to be a better man every day. Not asking for forgiveness.
say he strikes that same tone in his testimony. Will it be enough?
It might be. I think it's got to be some of those people a little practice. Others have criticized the apology. I don't think it was that bad. I think it's going to have to be more expansive. And there's always how much do you actually look into the eyes of the jurors. Generally not. You get an idea to do that. And some jurors find it intimidating, but just a little bit of a look over there might be helpful. I think he has to be more fulsome in his explanation and talk more about taxes and housing, not just what he's doing and taking responsibility. It's what he's doing to her and how he recognizes that.
Distinguish between being a domestic abuser and a racketeer. That's that, right? And Jill, great to have you.
Thank you so much.
The prosecution is taking through its witness list with many more still to go. So what part of the story do they still need to tell? And which witnesses might help them do that? My next guest may have no idea. She is the filmmaker behind the Fall of Diddy documentary featuring
My bitch said move, chair.
Players and she is standing by with her perspective next. I'm Valeria Leon in Mexico City.
Hi, I'm Premium Wireless, $15 a month at Mint Mobile. When I Premium Wireless for $15 a month, I think, why not Premium Wireless for $15 a month? Who am I kidding? Premium Wireless for $15 a month, always Premium Wireless for $15 a month. And sometimes, Premium Wireless for $15 a month. That's easy. That's what the fellow did, right? Yeah, Premium Wireless for $15 a month, am I right?
La 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 la.
I think AI right. Okay, guys?
When I was diagnosed with HIV, I didn't know who I would be. But here I am. And asked her healthcare provider about the #1 prescribed HIV treatment with Tommy.
Tommy is the one pill, once-a-day treatment used for HIV and then every 18 minutes. With one small pill, Tommy fights HIV, helping kids to undetectable and stay there. Whether you're just starting or replacing your current treatment, research shows that taking HIV treatment as prescribed and getting to and staying undetectable prevents transmitting HIV through sex. Serious side effects can occur, including kidney problems and kidney failure. Rare, life-threatening side effects include a buildup of lactic acid and liver problems. Don't take the target, take clofetamide or family. Tell your healthcare provider about all the medicine and supplements you take. If you're pregnant or breastfeeding or have kidney or liver problems, if you have hepatitis B, don't stop taking the target without talking to your healthcare provider. Side effects from diarrhea, nausea, and headache.
No matter where life takes you, Big Tommy can go with you. Talk to your healthcare provider today.
We the lazy declare that we will recline, and we're feeling fine.
We've checked off our to-do list.
Now we're checking off our $1 list.
We the lazy are taking back lazy.
And our lazy boy furniture.
Lazy boy. Long live the lazy. Angola is a hidden gem. Full of potential. We look forward
welcoming you back, time and time again, now and in the future. Angola awaits.
Clogged gutters can cause big problems fast. Until now, call 833 Leaf Filter today for your free gutter inspection.
I had terrible flooding problems on my porch. Now I understand why.
Right now, Leaf Filter is offering a free inspection on your schedule. Leaf Filter is a permanent gutter solution, so you never have to worry about costly damage from clogged gutters again.
Call us today and schedule your free inspection.
Schedule your free inspection. Call 833 Leaf Filter today or visit leaffilter.com.
Sorry, arthritis symptoms can be unpredictable. One day, your joints hurt.
It sits on your skin.
I got Cosentyx. It feels good to move.
Feel less joint pain, swelling, and tenderness, back pain, and your skin, and help stop further joint damage with Cosentyx. Don't use if you're allergic to Cosentyx. Before starting, get checked for tuberculosis. An increased risk of infections and lowered ability to fight them may occur, like tuberculosis or other serious bacterial, fungal, or viral infections. Some are fatal. Tell your doctor if you have an infection or symptoms like fevers, sweats, chills, or muscle aches or cough. Have a vaccine or inflammatory bowel disease or develop or worsen. Serious allergic reactions and severe eczema-like skin reactions may occur. What's the move? Ask your rheumatologist about Cosentyx.
So, what do you think about the Jeep Wrangler?
Very spacious.
Loving the battle world. What are you going to use it for?
Burning enough repairs and saving the world. That's
Probably his groceries. Sorry, we just saw Mission Impossible. I reckon we are very excited.
What's up? You don't keep around. To understand the world, you need the truth. And we get something today that nobody alive has ever seen before. Why we follow the facts. Wherever they lead, no matter how far we have to go.
it counts of utter devastation.
Every day we witness the world.
Through a big explosive like a place.
Follow
John Diddy will face a lifetime behind bars if he is convicted. It's a far cry from this lavish life in the spotlight. But his legacy is also left behind a trail of evidence for investigators and the public. The Discovery IT docuseries The Fall of Diddy highlighting some of those allegations months before this trial began. Some stories sound really similar to testimony we heard in court.
We went to a big party on Sunset. And when I was waiting outside, I seen Cassie come out first. And then I seen Puff come out and he was walking fast. And then all of a sudden I just seen him out of nowhere just punching. And then they started fighting.
I've lost a lot of operatives in the field. I'm happy you weren't some of them.
That's pleaded not guilty to federal charges. Finally now, the co-director of the city, Aruba and Soba, who are here.
Okay. You've had your fun. It's time to put the droids back in their box and to go to bed. Bring the chopper in and I'll give you a debrief. You want to be paid, don't you? That's what this was about. Not just the shooting and the explosions. You've done good work. Made this country safer. But that does not mean I'm going to like you.
Really now 2 weeks into trial.
Well, thank you for having me, Laura. I think what is what we're seeing, with this testimony at the trial is really filling in a lot of information and details that we didn't have. I mean, this is the first time we've had Cassie speak at length after her filing the lawsuit, and it's definitely filling in more information about her experiences with Combs in that relationship. This is the first time we've heard Kid Cudi speak. So it is filling in a lot of the things that we heard that people alleged, but hearing it from the mouths of the folks who experienced these events with Combs.
You mentioned before just how afraid people were in the documentary, afraid to come forward. Are you surprised at how many former staff members of Combs have even testified so far, let alone people who allegedly had these sexual encounters?
Yes, my bitch said boom.
Well, what we found in making the documentary is that as more of these events unfolded, Cassie's lawsuit, the raid of Combs'
My bitch
house,
said
the
boom.
video of him assaulting Cassie, the apology, the arrest, that prompted more and more people to come forward. It happened in our film. We had more people contact us and wanting to talk because seeing, these events unfold. I think there was a safety in numbers that folks felt, and there was a desire to be part of holding Combs accountable.
You were actually, the timeline's important here, I think. You were actually filming when CNN obtained the 2016 hotel security video that shows Combs dragging and kicking Ventura. What did you think of her testimony last week as you talked about how it filled in some of those gaps from her perspective?
Well, I mean, when we first saw that video, when the world first saw that video, it was shocking. It's one of the, most shocking pieces of footage I've ever seen. And hearing the testimony, she is, again, saying in her own words what happened. And again, it's shocking and it's upsetting. And I have to say, Cassie and the other folks who come forward with these allegations, are really showing a bravery to testify and to, in an attempt to have Combs be held accountable. It's very hard, and it's very courageous of these folks to do so, as they did so in our film and as we're seeing in court.
Thank you for not underestimating the bravery of anyone who comes forward when they have been victimized. You spoke to several people who had their own stories of alleged attacks from Combs, and he has denied all of them. But you insinuate there have been signs for decades. Why do you think he was able to hide this for so long? I mean, people talk about inner circles, but this was outer enablers, if that's the case.
Well, I think we've seen in our society, in our culture, that people who have who have had, abusive behavior or alleged abusive behavior for many, many years are able, through their power, through intimidation, are able to escape accountability. Combs is not the only one. And I think that is something that, that we have seen. And I think it's money and power and fear that allows people to do that. Celebrity as well. Culture and politics, what have you. So I think this is something that is, endemic in our culture.
Describe really confirms that this trial is more than just about the individual players involved. Yoruba Richard, thank you so much.
Thank you for having me, Laura.
You can listen to much of our trial coverage on my brand new CNN podcast, Trial by Jury. You can listen to on CNN.com or wherever you get your podcasts. I want to thank you all for watching. Anderson Cooper 360 is next.
Eva Longoria, Searching for Spain, returns June 1st on CNN.
My wife Gina was born to be a chef. Exploring new foods is her passion. But diabetes threatened to take that all away. Then Gina got Dexcom G7. Now she can see how food affects her sugar levels in real time. With Dexcom G7, she doesn't have to choose between the foods that she loves and her health. I can't wait to see what she creates next. You know it's gonna be good.
There's a reason Chevy is called the heartbeat of America. A heartbeat strong, steady, unwavering. Like the people who keep this country moving, doing what they do best. Helping neighbors, pitching in, and getting it done. For them, only America's most dependable truck will do it. In every Chevy truck, like every Chevy driver, dependability comes standard. Everyone's getting that new Simply Safe outdoor monitor.
How do we compete with AI-powered outdoor cameras and live agent monitoring?
Scott, this is simply safe.
Whoa. It seems there's no safe like Simply Safe.
Oh, I wish my TV provider let me choose what I pay for.
Sling let you do that, soft boy.
Hey, choose and customize your channel lineup or pause and watch for free. Sling lets you do that.
This is what joint pain looks like when you keep moving with a lead. Just one Aleve. 12 hours of uninterrupted joint pain relief. Aleve. Strength to last 12 hours.
Do it all with Steel Battery. Don't miss Steel deals. Now is the best time to save big on over 40 hardworking Steel tools. Hurry into your local Steel dealer or shop online.
Do you like saving money? Don't answer that. It's a rhetorical question. Who doesn't like saving money? Yeah, that's also rhetorical. Did you know that Mint Mobile is just $15 a month for premium wireless? I'm not sure if that's a rhetorical question, but I also don't know how you'd answer me because it doesn't work that way with commercials. Who thought this was a good idea? Damn it, I do it again. Do people who ask and then answer their own questions make great lovers? Perhaps.
If you have heart failure or chronic kidney disease, Farxiga can help you keep living life. Is there a place that you'd like to be? Serious side effects include reduced ketones and blood impurity, bacterial infection between the venous and genitals, both which may be fatal, severe allergic reactions, dehydration, urinary tract or venous infection, and low blood sugar. Stomach pain, tiredness, rash, swelling, trouble breathing or swallowing. Tell your doctor about
I'll take it.
pain, tenderness, redness or swelling between the venous and genitals. Ask your doctor about Farxiga today.
From Rose Bowl festivities to Major League ballparks, ESPN Experiences takes you behind the scenes and inside the action. Next up, the Travelers Championship. Your all-access pass starts here.
You lied to me.
I paid the price. Because I love you. You understand.
And you're back. You're mine.
I would do it all over again.
Closed captioning brought to you by Gilt. Visit Gilt.com today for up to 70% off designer brands.
They'll be gone in a flash. Sign the sales are up to 70% off. Shop Gilt.com today.
Tonight on
Hey, hurry. They'll be gone in a flash. Designer sales are up to 70% off. Shop Gilt.com today.
Tonight on 360, breaking news from Washington on the fatal shooting of two Israeli embassy staffers, what investigators and witnesses are revealing about the suspected gunman and his family and friends. Remember, the couple were killed.
Also searching for clues, San Diego officials looking into what caused a private jet to crash into a neighborhood in the middle of the night, killing people on.
New details are emerging about the deadly shooting of two Israeli embassy staff members in Washington. Suspected gunman Elias Rodriguez is now facing federal murder charges, one of which carries the possibility of the death penalty. The shooting is being investigated as both terrorism and a hate crime. This is the young couple that was killed, Yaron Bushinsky and Sarah Milgram. She was a volunteer at an organization called Tech to Peace that provided training, including conflict resolution, to young Palestinians and Israelis. According to court documents, surveillance video shows the suspect shooting them from behind, then leaning over them and firing several more times.
Make no mistake, this attack was targeted anti-Semitic violence, and it won't be tolerated.
Investigators are scouring the suspect's apartment, online presence, and writings. He's from Chicago and was visiting Washington for a conference. CNN's Brian Todd picks up the story.
Eyewitness Yoni Kalin says he was inside the Capitol Jewish Museum the moment shots were fired just outside.
Inside, we could hear about 10, 15 shots.
Kalin says just seconds later, in the chaos, a man entered the museum and appeared to be a witness. He sat down, Kalin says, and appeared pale and unwell. Bystanders offered him water. And another witness says she spoke to the man who she believes was the alleged shooter, not realizing then who he was.
Then I'm talking to him and I'm like, so do you like the museum? Just kind of trying to relax him. And he's like, oh, what kind of museum is this? So I told him it's a Jewish museum. And he asked me, do you think that that's why they did it?
Then Kalin says police entered the museum and there was a bizarre, chilling encounter.
As soon as the cops came in, he walked right up to them and said, I'm unarmed, I did this. He pulls out a rectifier and he says, free, free Palestine.
A chant the suspect repeated as he was handcuffed by police. The two victims, Yaron Lashinsky and Sarah Milgram, two staffers at the Israeli embassy in Washington, who the Israeli ambassador says were about to become engaged. An Israeli official tells CNN, at the moment Lashinsky and Milgram were shot, there were two young women right next to them, also staffers at the Israeli embassy, who were uninjured. The suspect, identified as 31-year-old Alias Rodriguez from Chicago. Multiple law enforcement sources tell CNN a lengthy letter that authorities are investigating as potentially being authored by the suspect was posted to social media, advocating violent retaliation over the war in Gaza, calling it, quote, the only sane thing to do. The letter was posted shortly after the shooting. It's not clear who posted it or if the post was pre-scheduled, set before the incident. On Thursday, the suspect was charged with multiple federal murder counts, firearms charges, and murder of foreign officials. Court documents detail the horrific acts of violence allegedly perpetrated by the suspect. According to the documents, officers on scene viewed surveillance footage showing the suspect walk past both victims before shooting them. Then, as the victims lay on the ground, the suspect was seen, quote, leaning over them with his arms extended and firing several more times. According to the documents, as Sarah Milgram tried to crawl away, he followed behind her and fired again. The documents say the suspect traveled to D.C. from Chicago 1 day before the shooting with a 9mm handgun in his checked baggage, which he purchased March 6, 2020.
This is a horrific crime, and these crimes are not going to be tolerated.
Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has ordered the reinforcement of security at Israeli missions around the world in the wake of this shooting, which Netanyahu says was committed by a, quote, vile anti-Semitic murderer. U.S. Attorney General Pam Bondi told Netanyahu that President Trump is, quote, personally involved in managing the response to this attack. Brian Todd, CNN, Washington.
And joining me now is Brian Levin. He is the founding director of the Center for the Study of Hate and Extremism. Brian, very good to have you on this conversation. Your work is all about getting to the root of hate and extremism in this country. I mean, first of all, I have to ask you what your reaction was when you learned that two people who work for the Israeli embassy were shot and killed, and that this happened outside of a Jewish museum.
I think if the documentation that I've seen is accurate, that the person who did this was in an milieu of hostile and aggressive, bigoted content online, both as consuming and spreading it. So this is something that we have a homegrown person. That being said, since 2018 through 2024, the most common type of fatal extremists in the United States, both in general and particularly with respect to anti-Jewish, were white supremacists, far-right, and neo-Nazis. And when we investigated with folks from other universities, what we found was the worst months for anti-Jewish hate crime in the 1990s, March 94, corresponded to bloodshed in the Holy Land. Similar, October 2000, that was the decade high. That was when the Intifada was taking place. And we
That works. I can see the planes now. Give me the last one.
Overall, anti-Jewish hate crime, a record in 2024 of 12%, anti-Muslim, not at a record, but up 18%, and both had similar double-digit increases of around 50%. the year prior, 2023.
Okay, interesting. And Brian, White House press spokesperson Caroline Leavitt said that the Trump administration has done more than any administration in history to crack down on anti-Semitism. I wonder what you say to that.
I look at the fact that the federal government just cut yesterday hate crime training grants and projects for police, also eliminated the domestic terrorism training and projects for police. Two studies I were on was defunded. It's a complete fabrication. The Civil Rights Division of the Justice Department has been cut by about 2/3. The Community Relations Service, part of the '64 Civil Rights Act, called America's Peacemakers, they do mediation. They've been virtually eliminated. So the bottom line is states like ours, California, have to fill in that void. The sad truth of the matter is the federal government, in what they're saying is combating anti-Semitism, is deporting people who are exercising their First Amendment rights, like Ms. Ozturk, who merely wrote and spent. One that I disagree with, but one that shouldn't be done in some kind of authoritarian deportation.
So, I mean, on that note, Brian, I mean, what, in your opinion, would be the most effective way of curbing the rise of anti-Semitism, Jewish crimes against Jewish people? You know, is it more federal funding that is needed, or public education? You know, I think fair to say that there are plenty of people here in this country that feel like that's kind of a lost cause in the current political climate.
Whether it's a lost cause or not, the time that you need the fire hose fully engaged is during the firestorm. And what we've been seeing is FBI agents being taken off domestic terrorism. Remember what I said. The number one cause of extremist fatality in the United States over the last 8 years, 7 years, has been far-right, white supremacist, neo-Nazi. And what we've seen is, including threats against me, and what we've seen is that kind of funding, research, personnel has been eliminated or diverted. So going after people, some of whom might be offensive, but immigrants or students, to deport them, eliminate their due process rights, and impose laws from either the 1790s or an expansion of a 1952 law that virtually gives carte blanche to anything the administration wants. That is not fighting anti-Semitism. Peace can begin here, and one of the things that we have to do is model peace, interfaith, fund research, and make sure our universities are not called into either anti-Semitism or the destruction of the First Amendment. Abject failure by universities in the last couple of years on both counts.
All right, Brian Levin, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
The Trump administration says Harvard University is no longer allowed to enroll foreign students. It comes as the school's officials refuse to bow to the administration's policy demands. As CNN's Jeff Zeleny reports, this move could impact more than a quarter of Harvard's student body.
The Trump administration is dramatically escalating its fight with Harvard University, saying on Thursday that all international students will be banned from continuing their education at Harvard, saying all students must change their enrollment to another university or lose their legal status to be in the United States. Now, the backstory to all of this comes as the fight with Harvard began earlier this year. Initially, the administration blocking some $2 billion or so in funding, federal funding, to Harvard programs. This comes as the administration is trying to get Harvard to change its curriculum. They say that the university has been dominated by DEI programs, anti-Semitic protests, and the like. The White House in a statement saying this: Harvard has turned their once great institution into a hotbed of anti-American, anti-Semitic, pro-terrorist agitators. The White House says enrolling foreign students is a privilege, not a right. Harvard University, of course, pushing back strongly on this, saying the government's action is unlawful. Harvard says the retaliatory action threatens serious harm to the Harvard community, our country, and undermines Harvard's academic and research mission. So the bottom line to this is this will certainly end up in a legal proceeding, added to the list of administration proposals that have been challenged by court. But this is a lot of students we were talking about here. Some 27% of Harvard's entire student body, about 6,700 students, would fall under this. So, of course, this has a big fallout for those students already here in the U.S. as the school semester nears an end. Jeff Zeleny, CNN, the White House.
A judge has denied a request to end deportation proceedings for Mahmoud Khalil, a Syrian-born lawful permanent resident of the U.S. Attorneys for the Palestinian activist argued that he was arrested illegally and without a warrant over 2 months ago. The Trump administration is trying to deport Khalil, who is a Columbian University student, after he helped organize pro-Palestinian rallies on campus. His attorneys tell CNN he got to hold his newborn baby for the first time on Thursday at the Louisiana Detention Center where he is being held. This bakery in central Gaza is baking again for the first time in 11 weeks. That's because a limited amount of food is trickling into Gaza for the first time since March 2nd. But UN officials say it is nowhere near enough to tackle the humanitarian crisis there and feed the hungry population. Israel ended its blockade this week. Previously, Israeli officials claimed Hamas was stealing aid sent into Gaza and selling it. On Wednesday, roughly 100 trucks delivered food to Gaza, but aid agencies warned that Gaza will be on the verge of famine without still more supplies.
It's utterly dire, and this is one of the problems. We're getting in this baby powder. It needs to be mixed with fresh water, and there's no fresh water, so we're having to get in water in those first convoys as well. I have complete trust in my team on the ground to work out what's needed when and how to prioritize it. Those first trucks that went in, it was mainly baby food. We were focused on saving those kids, and we've started to save them. Many of the next 80 trucks in food, almost half of it, the World Food Programme doing amazing work, getting the bakeries back open, 5 bakeries open again today, getting the community kitchens open, 70 community kitchens back open again today. And the next all of that is what's on the border right now.
Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu is accusing some Western leaders of being on the wrong side of history. British Prime Minister Keir Starmer said this week that he and leaders of France and Canada were horrified by Israel's escalation in Gaza. They're calling for a new ceasefire.
I could never understand how this simple truth evades the leaders of France, Britain, Canada, and others. They're now proposing to establish a Palestinian state and reward these murderers with the ultimate prize. You're on the wrong side of humanity, and you're on the wrong side of history. Now, these leaders may think that they're advancing peace. They're not. They're emboldening Hamas to continue fighting forever, and they give them hope to establish a second Palestinian state, from which Hamas will again seek to destroy the Jewish state.
Netanyahu called back Israel's negotiating team from ceasefire talks happening in Qatar. Some Israeli and families of hostages in Gaza protested the decision on Thursday. Another round of nuclear talks between the U.S. and Iran set to begin soon. And still ahead, we'll hear what people in Tehran think about a possible nuclear deal. Plus, a North Korean warship designed to send a message to the West is crippled even before it ever sets sail, and those responsible may now pay a heavy price.
Visionaries in association with Hyundai.
One guess, no charge, 5 totally records. I just had this vision. One day, I will open a place where there is no wall, where there is this empty space, where I will fill this space with creativity and people around me that will join me into that journey.
Years later, in 2011, she opened the doors to her first restaurant, Atelier.
We had a vision to tell the story
and to not be afraid about it. And I knew I was going to get backlash from my industry. What is she doing? And I keep having the vision and trying every day to keep going.
In 2018, she reached what some say is the pinnacle of the culinary world, coveted 3 stars.
Nothing is handed to you in the women's game. I want to help women's football grow. To show women can be involved in all aspects of the game. With Hyundai supporting the Women's World Cup, I hope to see more women play and more young girls dreaming big. Because when we raise the bar, we inspire the future.
You nearly killed me!
Brooke Rabel here, mom to 4 boys who make a lot of dirty clothes. I dread lifting those heavy detergent containers and the big mess they make. Well, check out my latest life hack. Happy Hour laundry sheets. They're lightweight, compact, and mess-free. Just pull one out and drop it in. No more pouring or measuring. All you need is 1 sheet for the entire load. The same as this full cup of detergent. The secret is a powerful cleaning formulation embedded in the fibers. The whole sheet quickly dissolves in water. Watch this. I'll put a sheet in. It works in hot or cold water. See how fast it dissolves? Look at this stain. There's no wasting time with pre-treaters because Happy Hour has a built-in stain remover that breaks up stains fast. The formula has a color protector. Plus, it's hypoallergenic and perfect for sensitive skin. And it's eco-friendly, so plastic containers like this won't end up in landfills. But it's still a powerful stain fighter and works in all types of washing machines. This shirt was stained with cherry juice. I'll place 1 sheet on top and add water. In just seconds, the stain is gone. Check out what people said outside the grocery store.
These are so heavy to lug around. I would love light sheets like these.
They bought 60 loads and it couldn't fit in my purse.
That's crazy. Doing laundry just got a lot easier. Where can I get some of these?
It's time to lighten the load so you can start Happy Hour sooner. Call or go online now to get Happy Hour laundry sheets. Enough for 120 loads for just $14.99 with free shipping. That's right. Call now or go to our website and get a full month of Happy Hour for 50% off our regular price. Happy Hour ships right from the USA. And I guarantee Happy Hour laundry sheets will make laundry days easier or you'll get your money back.
Call 1-800-960-9570 or go online to myhappyhour.com. So call 1-800-960-9570 or go to myhappyhour.com.
Do you have a box of videotapes, film reels, and photos that aren't degrading? Legacy Box professionally converts them to DVDs, thumb drive, or the cloud. Legacy Box is simple and safe, with over 1 million satisfied customers. Visit legacybox.com today to get our $9 offer.
Precise designs, subtle prints, curated upgrades, elevated design for thoughtful living. Puma.
I'm Rafael Gomez, and this is CNN.
Marcel.
U.S. envoys will discuss a potential nuclear deal with Iran in Rome in the coming hours. A source familiar with the matter tells CNN the talks are hitting crunch time as both parties approach a 60-day deadline for a deal set by President Trump back in March. Iran says it will not relinquish its rights to nuclear energy, including uranium enrichment, despite warnings from the U.S. that Israel is preparing to strike Iranian nuclear facilities. While Iran will attend, 2 Iranian sources tell CNN they are skeptical of the Trump administration's intentions. How do people in Iran feel about the nuclear talks with the U.S.? CNN's Fred Peikin got some answers in Tehran.
Here on the streets and markets in Tehran, of course, the negotiations between the Iranians and the Trump administration is the talk of the town. Of course, those negotiations have been fairly difficult. The Iranians have threatened to walk away several times because of some of the things that members of President Trump's negotiating team have said, especially that the U.S. would not allow nuclear enrichment inside Iran by the Iranians. The Iranians say for them that is an absolute red line. They say they've worked hard for the civilian nuclear program, and they have a right to enrich nuclear fuel. The Iranians also have to say if verification is necessary, they are willing to make compromises there. Folks that we've been speaking to here on the streets of Tehran say they that in agreement can be reached.
It's going to be a situation, they're going to put Iran into a corner, and they're going to be so much demand that Iran cannot give. And it's going to fail.
In Iran, the economic situation is not good for people, and we are in a recession. I think most of the people hope that maybe it possible.
Do you think there's a chance of success still?
I don't think so, because the decision is clear that we should have our nuclear power, not for using it for weapons, for killing people. We just need it for our power, for our energy.
So as you can see, a pretty complicated situation. What are the Israelis going to do? What's the Trump administration going to do? Can a compromise be reached? Now, Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, the supreme leader and final authority on everything here in Iran, he says he's not confident that these negotiations can come to a successful conclusion, and he urged specifically on American negotiators to try not to talk any nonsense.
North Korea's leader is furious after a blunder involving the launch of the country's newest warship, and he's signaling to those responsible, fix the problem quickly or else.
It doesn't talk about much, but that's what my podcast is all about. Join me and my guests for a new season in conversations about loss, life, and love.
All There Is with Anderson Cooper. Listen wherever you get your podcasts.
Join me in Larvador as I introduce you to African strength betters. See how they use their talents, resources, and passion to make a difference on the continent. This is African Voices Changemakers.
With purpose and style, these two designers are building a new creative legacy for Africa.
I am pushing against this whole idea that modernity in design is not going from European approach to design.
African Voices Changemakers on CNN.
I'm in Florence in London, and this is CNN.
All new Inside Africa. See a continent in transformation as trailblazers evolve culture, technology, and industry across Africa and beyond. Step inside a world like no other and explore the biodiversity of South Africa's Cape Floristic region.
If there was an Olympic Games for one of us, we would definitely win gold.
Inside Africa on CNN in association with Zenith Bank.
Unpredictable environment and news races around the world at breakneck speed.
How do you feel being in here with these valuable results was just being criticized for how I look?
My show brings you the latest news and top news makers.
What do you want people to know about mortality?
Consider the most emotional scenes of this area. It's important to say, but it's not about. It's something worth living.
Today on CNN.
This thing is looking for any signs of cartel activity. They're showing us what they've just discovered. Very sizable synthetic compound. Managed to secure a meeting with a member of the cartel. People are dying on a daily basis. Children are afraid to go to school. Do you have any sense of remorse over your role and your involvement in this group? The biggest trend, the latest business ventures, and the boldest investment, pushing the continent forward. We're all prepared to build a better Africa. The profit, what opportunities will come, where will growth take shape?
You can make the continent go into your power.
And how will it all impact the global economy? We want to provide people opportunities for them to make their best and build meaningful careers. Join me, Zain Asha, on Africa.
Saturday on CNN.
With Plan B, we control our future. Plan B is backup birth control that helps prevent pregnancy before it starts. Get it in store or order for same-day delivery from Become. Together, we've got this. Taco Bell brought back crispy chicken nuggets. I can't believe how good they are.
I can't you believe it?
Because you're Taco Bell. Taco Bell.
Yeah, but a taco place can do nuggets, right?
Yeah. And about fire engine.
Just awesome.
Okay, they're good. But we're not chicken place.
When did you guys sell the chicken place?
Chicken? Can't the taco place do good nuggets? We're not allowed to do both.
What do you mean?
You think it's do both, right? Why are you looking at me like that?
Are they okay? I don't think so.
We're totally a taco place. That's a chicken place. That's also a taco place.
With Weight Watchers, I love that I can eat my favorite foods
And still lose the weight.
Lose 3.5 times more weight with our Clinic Improvement Points program. Now with over 150 new zero-point foods for easier weight loss and lasting results.
George Clooney in Broadway's Good Night and Good Luck, live June 7th on CNN.
Welcome back. I'm MJ Lee. Let's take a look at today's top stories. The man suspected of gunning down 2 Israeli embassy staff members in Washington is now charged with murder. Police say 31-year-old Elias Rodriguez shouted "Free Palestine" as he was detained. The U.S. Justice Department says it's too soon to say whether they'll pursue the death penalty. The Trump administration is barring Harvard University from enrolling international students. School officials have been in a dispute with the White House over federal funding, and they have refused to bow to the administration's policy demands. This move could impact more than a quarter of Harvard's student body. Rapper Kid Cudi testified in the Sean Diddy Combs trial on Thursday. He accused Combs of breaking into his home and being involved in setting fire to his Porsche. A makeup artist also testified. She described Combs becoming violent with his ex-girlfriend Cassie Ventura in 2010. North Korea's plans to bring its Navy to the 21st century took a big step backwards. Things went horribly wrong during the launch of a new warship on Wednesday. Our Will Ripley reports those responsible are now facing Kim Jong-un's wrath.
They were supposed to be North Korea's double threat, a pair of brand new 5,000-ton destroyers, heavily armed, a massive upgrade from their aging Soviet-era fleet. Modern warships designed to strike fear and project power far beyond North Korean shores. But only one made it off the dock. New satellite images reveal the aftermath of a catastrophic launch failure. The second destroyer lies partially capsized in the water, one side submerged, sections of the hull draped in blue tarps. This was that ship just days earlier, before the botched launch left it on its side, half sunk, dead in the water. Worse still, Marshal Kim Jong-un was watching from shore. North Korean state media quoted Kim, calling the warship launch a criminal act that brought shame to the nation. Kim blaming absolute carelessness and irresponsibility of shipbuilders, scientists, and military leaders. What's going to happen to these people that were directly involved with this?
There's no doubt he will hold everybody responsible for this, and anybody who is tangentially responsible for this, he'll hold them accountable, and without being graphic, he'll put a bullet in everybody's head if he has not already.
Retired General James Spider Marks served on the Korean Peninsula. He believes Kim will punish what he sees as a national betrayal, swiftly and brutally. Over more than a decade in power, Kim has built a reputation for exactly that, ordering the trial and execution of his own uncle. North Korea denies Kim also ordered the assassination of his half-brother. Top-ranking officials accused of failure have vanished. South Korean intelligence believes some were executed, others sent to forced labor camps for re-education.
This is going to be incredibly painful.
General Marks says the warship disaster also exposes deeper problems inside the North Korean military, well beyond the Navy.
What is the state of those nukes? How are they maintained? What does the inventory look like? Is this the possibility for a mistake?
The South Korean and U.S. militaries say Kim's crown jewel lies crippled, possibly damaged beyond repair, just weeks ahead of a major political summit in North Korea's capital, Pyongyang, where observers say the reckoning will come.
We're also learning North Korea's new destroyer, the one that did make it into the water, may lack a functional engine. Satellite imagery suggests the ship has never actually been sailing independently. Experts believe it may be relying on tugboats for movement, raising some serious doubts about the ship's real operational capability and undermining North Korea's claim, as if this accident didn't already do that, of advanced naval modernization. Will Ripley, CNN, Taipei.
Some children in Gaza are finding ways to be kids despite enduring war and hunger. Ahead, you'll meet the girls. Brooke Rabel here, mom to 4 boys who make a lot of dirty clothes. I dread lifting those heavy detergent containers and the big mess they make. Well, check out my latest life hack. The Hour Laundry Sheet. They're lightweight, compact, and mess-free. Just pull one out and drop it in. No more pouring or The secret is a powerful cleaning formulation embedded in the fibers. The whole sheet quickly dissolves in water.
These vehicles are fast, armored, all-terrain, perfect for militarized police, police-sized military, and concerned civilian interests. Whether you're driving this into enemy forces in a theater of war or a crowd of protesters in downtown LS. Insurgent LAPV Mark III integrity test on my signal, and fire.
And it's eco-friendly, so plastic containers like this won't end up in landfills, but it's still a powerful stain fighter. It works in all types of washing machines. This shirt was stained with cherry juice. I'll place one sheet on top and add water. In just seconds, the stain is gone. Check out what people said about Idaho.
Days are so heavy to lug around those mud like sheep like these. See? There isn't any container. That's great. You know what? You just got a lot easier. We're gonna get some of these.
It's time to clean the clothes so you can start the hour soon. Right now to get happy hour laundry sheet. Enough for 120 loads for just $14.99 with free shipping. That's right. You can get a full month of happy hour for 50% off regular price. Happy hour shipping right from the USA. I guarantee happy hour laundry sheets will make laundry days easier or make your money back. Go online to get yours today.
Call 1-800-960-9570 or go online to buy. So call 1-800-960-9570.
Get the insurgents and get out of there. Use the mounted machine gun on one of them if you have to. I'll meet you at our safe house in North Columbia.
DVDs, thumb drive, or the cloud. Legacy Box is simple and safe with over 1 million satisfied customers. Visit legacybox.com.
Precise designs, subtle curves, with upgrades, elevated design for thoughtful living.
Explore Africa with CNN, where 54 nations create the fabric of this rich continent. This is really complex and travel business and human trends, nature, and culture. Taking Africa today.
Expand its markets around the world. The energy is amazing.
Country's gone on the tour in London. If you can keep your head when markets all around you are losing and you can't see a way through it, then you can trade and not make money your master. You can try and sell them to the people that are getting the money in the world. Not the of the there. So when you come to the bed, we will make sense of the world and what we say.
The 5 Things Podcast on CNN. Introduced on 5 stories, all in one podcast. The 5 things you need to know in under 5 minutes. Listen, get more podcasts.
Despite being hungry and living in a war zone, some young girls in Gaza have found a way to make life feel a bit more normal. 2 days a week, they spend hours learning to skateboard. CNN's Mohammed Darwish spoke with those girls.
In Gaza's shattered ground, young girls find a sense of freedom.
تزلج وانا بدرب البنات يعني كثير بنبسط معهم كمان البنات غالبا هي اللي نسينا انه في قصف.
Despite the dangers and Gaza's rising death toll, with about 53,000 people killed so far, girls like Rimas meet at the YMCA in Gaza City to skate. They practice for 5 hours twice a week, even if it's on an empty stomach. An Israeli siege of the Strip, now in its third month, means food supplies are dangerously low, and many are at risk of malnutrition and famine. Israel says the blockade is a pressure tactic to force Hamas into releasing the hostages. These girls, though, they're just here to skate.
بدك تمشي حالك اليوم
Captain Recep, as he's known, started skating back in 2014. A few years later, he began teaching, and now so many kids show up, they have to take turns using one of the group's 6 remaining skateboards. Rajab Rimas and a handful of other volunteers are passing on the sport to the next generation, hoping normalcy will one day return.
يعني قبل هيك نزل علينا كمان يعني الصوت الجبار والحرق جنبان احنا المفروض نسمع سلاح الزيتون بس يعني عادي نطلع خلص يعني نور توكلنا على الله.
بحاول قدر الامكان ما تقدمش على الابطال لانه الفرصه واحنا بندرب بالابطال السنتين ولكن سلاح سنتين وهيك وانا كنت اعرف انه هذا من نفس الغذاء اللي احنا بنعيشه. انا نفسي مرات بلعب هيك نوقف بسبب الجوع اللي احنا بنعيشه وهذه مشكله كبيره. يعني احنا في يوم من الوقت عدة اسلحه بنلاقي منها اللي هو المجاعه.
Music, laughter, friendship, they're all part of the club's spirit. Their numbers are growing all the time, despite the risks.
لا سمح الله اذا انا صار لي شيء انا لي رساله موجه رساله كل هذول اللاعبين اللي بندربهم انه مسيرتي انا تضلها مستمره والرياضه هذه الزيتون موجود في فلسطين. هذا الرياضه حتضلها مستمره ان شاء الله.
Mohammed Darwish, CNN.
Thank you for joining me. I'm MJ Lee. World Sport is next.
No, it's not.
we only needed one of these? Other one's a spare. You're gonna be going in the one without a gun, don't want to draw attention. Pull the electrics, strip the plating, EMP will go in. Merryweather won't notice a difference. You guys won't need armor in there, will ya? Right, now get going. Let's wrap this up. So, Mr. Crest said we should talk about work. But not here. Is there a room in the back or something? Cool, I'll get set up.
Not doing this.
So, Mr. Crest said you might be able to help me out with something. Well, not me, so that's clear. It's not me you're going to be helping. And I want it understood that I am not involved. Just a bystander doing a favor. And this is not an offer of employment so much as an opportunity. And, well, anyway, that's just getting a bit technical. But the point is, sometimes our fair and legal justice system makes mistakes. And this is one such time. Here he is, Professor Maxim Brashkovsky. You know the professor? Used to be head of research for the Army. 3 doctorates. Overconfident polymath, vain sociopath, tedious egomaniac, control freak, geneticist, weapons development, engineer, car nut, but definitely not a people person. Accused of espionage along with everything else? You don't remember? Well, lucky you. Exceedingly vain and self-absorbed man, brilliant at everything he does, yada yada yada, makes you want to puke. He's a goddamn traitor. I mean, he's a rat, but he pays. Incarcerated for a crime he did commit, but, well, let's just say money talks, and he's going to walk. So, we got a few things to get ready, all pretty straightforward. Do them one at a time, but any way you like. Standard op for a gov-fact breakout, if you know what I mean. Rad. All right, first thing's a plane. Then we got a bus, and then, well, 2 things. We got the inmate transfer schedule and Rashkovsky's car. More on that later. Let me show you. We need a plane to get the professor out of the country. It's currently being used to traffic drugs by a transnational street gang, the Vagos. The bus. Need a standard Bolingbrook transport vehicle. The least traffic is on the route from Toledo Bay. All right? That's where you're going to be able to get a hold of one. You can get a hard copy of the inmate transit schedule at the LSPD's Mission Row station. Go in unarmed, play it cool. You might not have a problem. That's a 2-person job, max. The other 2-hander is our guy's prize Casco. We believe it's about to be shipped to Korea by a luxury car theft ring. Okay. Mr. Crest said you guys are at least semi-competent, so, well, Professor Rashkovsky pays well.
Yeah, I'm gonna do this and then head out because I'm not doing this. Oh, damn it.
So, you're moving on the plane. It's at McKenzie Airfield. Logistics are as yet undecided. Go in how you like, but go in with a good supply of ammunition, armor, and maybe even explosives. It's gonna get kinda heavy. Like I said before, the airfield is under Vago's control. They're using the plane to make trafficking runs across the border. That means it's already set up to take Reshkovsky out of the country. Limited radar visibility, plausible cover story. It's perfect. Don't let the fact that there are a bunch of angry drug dealers waiting for you affect how you go in, or actually do. Some more background on the Vagos. Okay. Globalized, multinational, decentralized criminal network. Their principal interest is in drug trafficking, but they've diversified into mid-level distribution, end-user sales, and trafficking other contraband. You get caught with a kilo of coke, they throw the book at you. You're caught with a quart of capybara semen, it's a slap on the wrist. And the market for large endangered rodent ejaculate is lucrative. Most of the Vagos upper management, shot callers if you like, are already incarcerated here in the States and throughout Central and Latin America. They run the network on cell phones, and it's a relatively flat hierarchy at the top. So if you cut one head off, there's 6 more waiting to bite. Not that I want to dismantle any criminal networks. As you know, I'm a criminal myself. I just like to do my homework. Criminal homework. The prison angle's gonna help us sell our raid on Bolingbroke. It's not something that they would do, but it's the kind of thing the authorities believe that they would do, which is all that really matters. You get me? Okay. Looks like a shit show down there. Clear the airstrip before you think about taking that bird into the sky. If the plane gets shot up, we're back to Alpha. Keep it up down there. The more noise you make at the airstrip, the more plausible the cover story becomes. Pongo's cell phones are going loco, people. Expect more of them any second now. But remember, the mission is the plane.
Inside Chicago neighborhood are trying to make sense of the tragedy.
It shocked me. I heard that the shooter was from Chicago, but to have it be my next door neighbor.
From Chicago to Washington, law enforcement has been working around the clock to learn as much as they can about the 31-year-old shooting suspect, Elias Rodriguez. Part of the investigation, according to law enforcement sources, a lengthy letter signed with Rodriguez's name and posted to social media Wednesday night. The letter advocated for violent retaliation over the war in Gaza, called Israel's actions in Gaza genocide, and expressed fury over the, quote, atrocities committed by the Israelis against Palestine. The letter referenced armed action as a valid form of protest, calling it the only sane thing to do. What more at this point can one say about the proportion of mangled and burned and exploded human beings whom were children, the letter said. We who let this happen will never deserve the Palestinians' forgiveness. The shooting happened outside the Capitol Jewish Museum in D.C. The victims, Yoram Lashinsky and Sarah Milgram, staff members at the Israeli embassy.
The hate has got to stop, and it has to stop now. And this person will be prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law.
Israeli officials say Lashinsky and Milgram were dating. Lashinsky planned to propose soon.
What we saw last night was disgusting. I saw a young man's body being taken away who was about to get engaged. He had an entire life in front of him, and that was taken away.
Eyewitnesses told CNN Rodriguez first pretended to be a bystander after the shooting. When police arrived, Rodriguez turned himself in, shouting, "Free Palestine," a moment caught on video obtained by CNN.
He said, "I did this for Palestine." He started yelling, "Free, free Palestine," and just a revolution. There's only one solution.
Rodriguez appears to have been an activist for years. This GoFundMe page set up in 2017 raised money for a trip to Washington, D.C. for an event with a group called the People's Congress of Resistance. Rodriguez apparently writing that he wanted to put an end to imperialist war. He was also interviewed by Scripps News at a protest in 2018 over plans for an Amazon building.
I feel like if we could keep Amazon out, that is a huge victory and demonstrates sort of the power of people coming together and being able to say no to things like gentrification and these corporate subsidies.
After the shooting, Rodriguez's neighbor shared this message.
I learned during the Vietnam War, you don't stop this gun bomb. Stop war by going to you, talking to you.
Elias Rodriguez is facing charges including murder of a foreign official. Law enforcement in D.C. says this is being investigated as a hate crime, being investigated as active terror, and I interrupted you as attorney for Washington, D.C. Janine Pirro says that it is likely that there will be more charges added. Whitney Wild, CNN, Chicago. I spoke earlier with Brian Levin, the founding director of the Center for the Study of Hate and Extremism, and I asked for his reaction to the murders.
I think if the documentation I see is accurate, that the person who did this was in a milieu of hostile and aggressive bigoted content online, both as consuming and spreading it. So this is something that we have a homegrown person. That being said, since 2018 through 2024, and when we disaggregated with folks from other universities, what we found was overall anti-Jewish hate crime, a record in 2024, up 12%, anti-Muslim, not in a record, but up 18%, and both had similar double-digit increases of around 50% the year prior, 2023.
Okay, interesting. And Brian, White House press spokesperson Caroline Leavitt said that the Trump administration has done more than any administration in history to crack down on anti-Semitism. I wondered what you say to that.
I look at the fact that the federal government just cut yesterday hate crime training grants and projects for police, also eliminated the domestic terrorism training and projects for police. Two studies I were on was defunded.
A limited amount of food is trickling into Gaza for the first time since March 2nd. The UN officials say it is nowhere near enough to tackle the humanitarian crisis there and feed the hungry population. CNN's Jeremy Diamond reports from Tel Aviv.
Well, more than 11 weeks after Israel began its total siege of the Gaza Strip, humanitarian aid has finally begun to reach Gaza's population once again. Last night, trucks loaded with humanitarian aid, including flour, baby food, and nutritional supplements, they began to make their way through the Gaza Strip to distribution points. Bakeries in Gaza were baking bread all night long and throughout the day to try and get bread to people who need it the most. This aid was distributed in central and in southern Gaza, but there are still major questions that loom over the new entry of this aid and whether or not it will be capable of stemming what is a true hunger crisis that is still roiling the Gaza Strip. That's because, first of all, it's not clear whether this aid is going to make it to northern Gaza yet, where there are hundreds of thousands of people who are in dire circumstances, particularly as the Israeli military escalates its offensive in northern Gaza, and Israeli troops are beginning to advance in those areas and direct the population to evacuate. Then, of course, there is the issue of how many trucks is Israel going to allow in and for how long. We have seen so far that Israel appears to be authorizing about 100 trucks of aid per day, which is still short of what humanitarian aid officials say is needed. Humanitarian aid officials say the aid that has entered so far still represents just a drop in the ocean of the need that exists in Gaza, but certainly this is at least a ray of hope for the people of Gaza, although it's clear that the hunger crisis has yet to be fully solved. Jeremy Diamond, CNN, Tel Aviv.
And UNICEF Global spokesperson James Elder joins us now from Geneva, Switzerland. James, thank you very much for your time. For the first time after 11 weeks of no aid getting into Gaza, we are now seeing, as we saw in Jeremy's piece there, the first influx of food. First of all, I want to ask you, is this enough?
Not even close, MJ. Not by any sense of the imagination, and it's worrying. If we take any truck, any pallet, of course, given the level of deprivation, we talk to mothers, as I do, who will explain they haven't eaten for days, they give their food to their children, or a grandmother who buys a portion of a fruit. No, we have got conditions across the Gaza Strip that are as bad as we've ever seen when it comes to this is tokenistic right now, and the very real fear is that it's drip, drip, drip to try and reduce pressure before this private military contractor comes in to force people into areas to collect aid. So no, every truck, every pallet is important, but we've got enough food for 1 million people for 4 months, just the other side of the border. Incubators, medicines, water supplies, you name it. So this is a start, but it looks like a cynical start, MJ.
That last fact that you mentioned is really interesting because I was going to ask you, to your knowledge, is there enough humanitarian aid that is available that could go in? In other words, is lack of supplies also a problem, or is the biggest issue right now simply that those supplies are just not getting in there fast enough.
Yeah, the biggest issue is that there's been a blockade, that the power with the legal responsibility to ensure people don't starve, to ensure children who've been bombed get the medicines they need, that is Israel, let them come in. Donors have been very generous in terms of ensuring the food, the water, the medicines, as I say, the incubators, you name it, for children, and that's what's on the other side of the border. That's what UNICEF has, that's what the World Food Programme. This is what WHO has, so no, it's there, it's been there for a long time. It's quite unprecedented to see for 11 weeks a complete denial of everything a mother, a grandmother, a child needs, and only to see bombs going in. So now, as we saw in the ceasefire, MJ, that ceasefire gave hope. You've got hostages home, that abhorrence of people being trapped there. You know, Israeli citizens being trapped there. It got them home. It let aid flow across the Gaza Strip. It let doctors.
All right, I'm going to bed because I'm tired.
500 trucks a day. 500 a day. That was the capacity of the United Nations. That's what we were able to do with very brave partners on the ground.
I will see y'all later.
But not this a dozen or two a day. It's, as I say, it's drip, drip, drip. The highest official. It's a drop in the ocean, but it's worryingly. It looks much more like optics and smoke and mirrors than really trying to support boys and girls and women in the Gaza Strip.
And James, the fact that there are millions of people in the Strip who have been just desperately hungry for so many weeks now, I wonder how concerned you are about things like looting and also just the safety of bakery workers who are now finally getting back to work.
There's no doubt, MJ, the UN's been very, very open around the challenges of looting. You know, you deprive a population for so long of everything and then allow the UN one route. You know, the Israeli officials could give us many options to take aid in. One route, that will be a major challenge.
All right, y'all. Good night.